Hello YouTube, welcome back. It's been a while since I made a Python video, so I thought I'll just put this out there. I haven't covered any of the three libraries I'm using in this one in detail, but I thought this is something interesting that I was able to do yesterday, so I thought I'll just make a video and share this with you guys. Briefly tell you what I want to do. So for the folks who don't know what gbif is, gbif basically is name database. Show you what it is. They've got a cool web page, so it's a free and open access biodiversity data. But if you're using their database, you have to quote them, and they tell you how to do that. And you have to have an account with them. Like you could just sign up and register with I think social media, but otherwise you could just register with email address and password, and then you have access to all of their information. And they've got occurrence records of different species or different organisms, you know, like plants, flora and fauna. And there's 1571 publishing institutions, which is basically the number of databases they combine. They're an aggregator of all these names, and they have over 50,000 data sets. You can go to their website and see what they have to offer, and this is where you go in to register. And you can also just search through their information, like you can search for occurrences, species, data sets and trends. So it's a brief of what gbif is. They have an API, which is what I was looking at earlier. This is their API summary, and what we'll be doing today is we'll be connecting to their API, grab some information. Alright, so before we start, I'll just show you what I have in the file structure. Basically, I've got a folder called lookup names, and there's a output file which is gbif names, and then there's lookup.py, which is the script you're looking at, the highlighted script, and then I've got a names.xlsx. So if I open names, I've just got some names, maybe like 24 of them, no header, at least at this stage, and gbif names look something like this, which is just a CSV, and it just returns a name and a count. So if I go back here, I'm importing three libraries. You could import them all in one line, but I just like to keep it clean when I want to delete something. XLRD is the library that deals with Excel files, requests, makes the API call, and CSV to write the output as CSV. Then I'm setting up a variable called count. Here's where I'm reading the workbook and the worksheet. So I'm just calling a workbook object. I'm creating a workbook object and calling the open workbook function, which captures the name of the workbook. Or I'm creating a worksheet object from the workbook object by name. You could also use sheet by index, right? And it takes an integer. So this is same as the code that we had before. I've just saved it, and you can probably see the Control S. And then this is the code that reads the names into an array. So I've created an empty array, and I've got a for loop here. For each row, it just gets the name and appends it. Now, there was something that I had as a problem. I'll talk about it a little later. So this is where all the names are read, and the names are getting printed. When I run the command, the first thing you see is is an array of names with 24 elements in it. Now I've declared the base URI, which is basically your base URI for what a query looks like when you want to search free from text. And this information I had to research and get from the gbif API just here, right? I had to go through their API, see what the query looks like, and what sort of selectors they have, or what sort of endpoints they have. That's a bit of research you have to do, depending on what I want. So I've got text names I want to look up. What I've done is I've opened a file which is basically the gbif names.csv. Delete everything in there. So delete, save, close. I've opened it for writing, and I have a new line character. So new line character is blank, otherwise it'll append an extra \n, which means each of your output will have one line gap between each of them. I've opened that file as out, and then I've created a writer for that file with a delimiter of comma, which is basically what the separator is for CSV files. And now I've got a for loop going for name in names, which is basically this one, which is where we're printing all the names. So for each name in the names array, it's going to increment the count and then append the URI to base URI, and it's going to store the result of the request.get. This is a very simple get. You can make it all complicated with extra headers, authentication. Their API supports basic authentication, but for what I'm asking, I don't need to use basic authentication. I'm not making a query that's pretty big. I'm just making one query for one name at a time, so you don't need to authenticate. And then I'm getting the content of the response as a JSON, converting that into a JSON. So I'm using this function so I don't have to import the JSON library. Otherwise I had to do import JSON and I have to do JSON load content, right? So I didn't want to do that. I just have a print statement that I was using to check something, and then finally I just write the row into this file. I've got like a processing comma count, so I know how many names are done at any point in time. I want to check the status, but I'll just show you what the response looks like. So I'll just get the base URL, and I'm gonna look for just Acacia. Right, so this is what the response looks like, and what I'm printing is just a count at the moment. But if you wanna get the ID, the taxon ID, you just do, when you pass the content, instead of count, you do results of 0. That's the result. Results is an array. That's why you see this sign here. Results of 0 dot taxon ID. So let's just run this. Okay. See, that's printed the names, and now it's processing. So I just want the count. The reason I want to count is I want to see if they have the name in their database. So if I come here, so I want to know if those names exist in the GBIF database, so that's why I'm just calling them. If a name doesn't exist, I fix up the text string. I'll just verify and make sure that the name is correct. So you see how it's finished and it's populated the whole thing. Now I'll open this in Excel. So these are the names that it looked up, and there's still some zeros. So if I do a sort, there's 3 names it couldn't find. There's a few names that had 2 objects returned. I won't go into the detail of what that means. That's how you can use Python to just make a simple GET request from an Excel file that you have. This is a good way to do, like, read Excel, use requests to make a GET request, process the response, and print it as a CSV. So very simple use case. I'll see if I can make more videos like this. If you have a specific use case in mind, just let me know and I'm happy to make a video for it. Thank you guys. Expect more videos from me on processing, because I'm learning processing at the moment. Thank you. I'll see you in the next one.